Hello everyone. Today we are peeling back the curtain on one of the most ruthless, ingenious, and understudied institutions of ancient China, the official surveillance and supervision system of the Qin dynasty, the first unified imperial regime in Chinese history. This is not a tale of battles or conquests, but of power, how the first emperor Qin Shi Huang turned fear and oversight into a weapon to control an empire of millions stretching from the Yellow River Plains to the southern hills and the western deserts. What we are about to unpack is not legend or folk history. Every detail is rooted in strict historical records. The Book of Han Shui, Hudi, Qin, Bamboo, Slips, Liuqin, Slips, and mainstream academic consensus with zero fabrication or romanticized myth-making. This is the cold hard truth of how Qin held its empire, together with a two-tiered supervision machine, the Yushi Dafu at the center, and the provincial inspectors in every commandery across the land. Let us start with the bigger picture. In 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang wiped out the last of the 6 warring states and abolished the centuries-old feudal enfeoffment system, replacing it with a centralized commandery county system. For the first time, a single ruler held absolute authority over a territory of unprecedented size. But such a feat came with a fatal risk. How could one man ensure that thousands of appointed officials, from the highest ministers in the capital to local governors in distant commanderies, obeyed his will, did not embezzle taxes, did not abuse the people, and did not plot rebellion? The answer was a dedicated supervision system, a permanent eye of the emperor that watched everyone from the prime minister down to low-level county clerks. This system was not an afterthought. It was the backbone of Qin autocratic centralization, designed hand in hand with its legalist governance model. At the very top of this supervision structure sat the Yushi Dafu, the imperial censor-in-chief, one of the 3 dukes alongside the prime minister and the grand commandant. Let us clarify his status and power with strict historical accuracy. According to the Book of Han, tables of officials and nobles, the Yushi Dafu was an official of the Qin dynasty, ranked as a senior minister, with a silver seal and blue ribbon, serving as the deputy prime minister. His rank was lower than the prime minister and grand commandant, who held gold seals and purple ribbons. But his role was uniquely powerful, because he reported directly to the emperor, bypassing all other bureaucratic channels. This was not a ceremonial post. It was a political counterweight, a check on the prime minister's overwhelming administrative authority. The Qing court understood that unmonitored executive power would threaten the throne, so the Yushi Dafu was created to keep the prime minister and all court officials in line. What exactly did the Yushi Dafu do? His duties fell into 3 core, non-negotiable areas, all documented in contemporary Qin legal texts and historical records. First, he was the chief supervisor of all central government officials. He had the full authority to investigate, impeach, and prosecute any minister, general, or functionary suspected of violating Qin law, neglecting duties, or acting against imperial orders. No one was above his scrutiny, not even the prime minister. Second, he managed imperial archives, legal codes, and official documents. All memorials from officials to the emperor went through his office first, and all imperial edicts were transmitted through him to the prime minister and lower offices. This gave him complete insight into the flow of state affairs, making it impossible for officials to hide misdeeds or falsify reports. Third, he oversaw major judicial cases and imperial investigations. When political scandals erupted or treason was alleged, the emperor would directly assign the Yushi Dafu, or his subordinate censors, to lead the inquiry, with no interference from the administrative bureaucracy. For example, when a mysterious stone inscription cursing the first emperor appeared in Donggun, Qin Shi Huang immediately sent censors to interrogate local residents and officials, a mission commanded by the Yushi Dafu's office. Beneath the Yushi Dafu was a fully staffed censorate, a specialized supervision bureaucracy that did the groundwork. The Yushi Dafu had 2 chief deputies, the palace assistant, imperial censor, and the imperial censor administrator. The palace assistant imperial censor was especially critical. He managed 15 palace censors who worked inside the imperial palace, monitored court ceremonies, checked official conduct, and handled direct impeachment cases. He also acted as the link between the central censorate and the provincial supervision network, ensuring that reports from local inspectors reached the emperor without delay or tampering. This structure was not random. It was a legalist masterpiece, designed to separate supervision from administration, so that those who enforced laws were not the same as those who carried out daily governance, a primitive but effective form of checks and balances tailored for autocratic rule. Now we move from the capital Xianyang to the vast local territories, where the second pillar of Qin's supervision system came into play: the provincial inspector, also known as the commandery supervisor. When Qin divided the empire into 36 commanderies, each commandery was assigned 3 top officials: the commandery governor, chief administrator, the commandery commandant, military chief, and the inspector supervision chief. Unlike the governor and commandant, who managed local affairs and military affairs, the inspector was appointed and dispatched directly by the central censorate, answerable only to the Yushi Dafu and the emperor. He was not part of the local administrative hierarchy. He was an outsider, a spy, for the throne planted in every regional stronghold, to prevent local officials from forming independent power bases. The powers of these provincial inspectors were extensive and strictly defined by Qin law, confirmed by the Li Yi Qin slips, actual administrative records from a Qin county that have survived for over 2,000 years. First and foremost, they supervised the commandery governor and commandant, checking their tax collection, corvée, labor management, law enforcement, and treatment of common people. Any abuse of power, corruption, or failure to implement imperial decrees had to be reported immediately to the capital. Second, they reviewed local judicial cases and could order retrials if they found unfair judgments or legal violations. Third, they participated in key local governance tasks, such as overseeing public works, inspecting military preparations, and even recommending talented local men for official positions, though their primary role remained supervision. Most importantly, they could not be dismissed or controlled by local officials. Their term of service, authority, and promotion were all managed by the central government. This design eliminated the age-old problem of feudal warlordism, where local rulers passed power to their descendants and ignored the central court. We must also emphasize the legal foundation that backed this entire supervision system to maintain strict historical accuracy. Qin's governance was built on legalism, and its supervision was not based on moral judgment but on written law. The Shui Hudi Qin bamboo slips, discovered in Hubei in 1975, contain multiple laws governing officials, such as the law on official appointment and law on examining officials, that clearly defined good officials and bad officials and laid out specific penalties for negligence, corruption, and disobedience. The inspectors, both central and local, did not act on personal whims. They enforced these laws to the letter. This made the supervision system institutionalized, not arbitrary, a key reason it could function across such a large empire. It was not a tool of personal tyranny alone. It was a state mechanism to sustain centralized rule. Now, let us analyze the political logic and historical impact of this system to give you the deep analytical insight you expect from a hardcore historical documentary. The Qin supervision system was revolutionary for its time because it created the first central, local, two-tier supervision network in Chinese history. Before, Qin supervision was sporadic, tied to feudal lords or temporary missions. Qin turned it into a permanent, professional, nationwide system. At the center, the Yushi Dafu balanced the prime minister's power, preventing administrative tyranny. Locally, provincial inspectors tamed regional officials, ensuring imperial decrees reached every corner of the land. Together, they turned a scattered collection of former warring states into a single, obedient empire. But this system also had inherent flaws that would later contribute to Qin's collapse, and we must address this with historical honesty. The supervision system was designed to serve autocracy, not protect the people. Inspectors focused on enforcing imperial will and suppressing dissent, not on safeguarding civilian welfare. The strict, unforgiving enforcement of Qin laws, combined with the surveillance culture, created widespread fear and resentment among both officials and commoners. Moreover, the system relied entirely on the emperor's personal authority. When Qin Shi Huang died, the central government fell into chaos under Qin Shi and the eunuch, Zhao Gao, and the supervision machine broke down. Corruption spread, local officials rebelled, and the empire collapsed within a few years. Yet even in failure, the system left an indelible mark. The Han Dynasty, which replaced Qin, inherited and refined this supervision model, keeping the Yushi Dafu, and later creating the inspector system to oversee provinces. For the next 2,000 years, every Chinese imperial dynasty adopted a central local supervision structure, tracing its roots directly back to Qin's Yushi, Dafu, and provincial inspectors. This is not just a chapter of Qin history. It is the origin of China's imperial supervision tradition, a blueprint for how centralized states monitor power and control territory. What makes this story so compelling is that it reveals a timeless truth about power. Every great empire builds a watchful eye to hold itself together, and that eye is both its greatest strength and its most dangerous vulnerability. To wrap this up with strict historical clarity, let us recap the core facts without exaggeration. The Qin dynasty established the first unified imperial supervision system in Chinese history, with the Yushi Dafu as the supreme central supervisor, part of the three dukes, overseeing all court officials and state documents. In local commanderies, provincially appointed inspectors monitored regional administrators, reporting directly to the central government. Supported by written legal codes and a professional bureaucracy, this two-tier system was the cornerstone of Qin's centralized autocracy, enabling the first emperor to govern a vast multi-region empire. While the Qin dynasty fell quickly, its supervision structure became a foundational institution for later Chinese dynasties, shaping state governance for 2 millennia. This is not a story of heroes or villains. It is a story of institutional power, of how a regime used systematic oversight to rewrite the course of Chinese civilization. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.